Hi guys, and welcome back to LPJ Models. So I was looking through Amazon the other day and I came across an airbrush and compressor for £43.99 British pounds. Now that's 50 euros or about 60 US dollars, and that's insanely cheap. That can't be right. What's the catch? So I bought it. And in this video, we're going to see if it works, we're going to see how good it is, and would it be good for a beginner? Or is it a hard pass? Let's go to the bench and find out. Okay, so let's open it up and see what's in the box. So, in the box we have the compressor unit. So that's it's fairly weighty. It's got a power input, air intake, and an on and off switch. That's that. We have got a dual action airbrush with some plastic and metal paint cups. So the metal paint cup, that's got a lid as well. Plastic ones would probably be okay for acrylic, but I wouldn't want to trust them with lacquer. We've got an adapter for the airbrush to connect to the compressor. We've got a nozzle wrench, taking off that nozzle. And we've also got a charging cable. So when I looked at the airbrush earlier, I did notice, unfortunately, the needle is very slightly bent. Now the needle being damaged isn't a surprise considering the quality of the packaging, but it does mean I'm going to have to take the nozzle off and remove the needle from the front of the airbrush to fix it. If I pull the needle back into the nozzle, I might crack the nozzle or put it out of shape. So to do that, I'm going to take the back guard, the air cap and the nozzle cap off. I'm going to loosen the rear chuck, and I'm going to use the nozzle wrench to gently loosen the nozzle. Okay, so with that nozzle free, I can push the needle out from the other side. And I should, because the bend's not too bad, and when working with nozzles and needles, they're quite delicate, so you need to be quite careful. And here you can see the bend in the needle a bit more clearly. But like I said, not to worry, I'll fix that. Luckily, I've got a sharpener, which is a needle sharpener. Now, I didn't expect to have to do this, but we'll go ahead and do it and fix the needle and bring the taper back and give it a polish, and then see how we get on. Okay, so that's the needle fixed. Let's take a look at the airbrush in detail. The nozzle looks like a standard Iwata style, Iwata or Sparmax style nozzle, with a threading and, by the looks of it, a rubber washer. A rubber washer is not going to hold up to any harsh solvents. So it might be worth just sticking to acrylics with this airbrush. I won't be, I want to test it with lacquers because I use lacquers a fair bit now. Let's disassemble the airbrush. Remove the needle chuck. Remove the internal chassis. I mean, the tolerances seem fairly tight. It doesn't feel as cheaply made as it must be. I mean, it's all quite light, so it's probably an aluminium with some stainless steel parts. Okay, so this isn't quite as refined as you might get in an Iwata or a Harden Steenbeck. But as you can see, the design's very similar. Looks like these are chrome plated brass. The trigger and the plunger seem okay. Let's take the valve assembly apart. So we've got a rubber washer and there appears to be some extra grease in there. Now, one thing I'm looking at with this airbrush is it looks like it won't be very easy to clean. If you take a look inside the paint reservoir, you'll see threading going most of the way down, and it's quite angular in there. So it might mean that paint gets a bit more trapped than it would with one of the more expensive, slightly better designed airbrushes. Overall, I mean, apart from the needle, I can't complain for the money. Let's put this back together and then take a quick look at the compressor. It's not really a great deal to look at. So let's get it set up and see how it feels. As I said before, the compressor unit's slightly hefty. It weighs about 300 grams, so about 3/4 of a can of beans to be precise. Make sure everything's on there tight. It doesn't feel overly bad. I mean, the weight of the compressor and battery make it a bit heavy, so you might want to support it with your other hand without blocking the air intake. The action feels a bit clunky, but it's not too bad. I mean, it's better than I expected for the money so far. Now let's see how it sprays. So let's start off with some primer. I'm going to use Mr. Surfacer 1500 Finishing Surfacer, thinned around 70/30 with 70% Mr. Leveling Thinners. Let's see how we get on. So that laid down really nicely. I'm actually quite surprised. There wasn't any noticeably heavy overspray. The spray pattern was fairly tight. I'll leave that to dry and then get on with some detail painting. Now, I don't do a lot of pre-shading anymore, but it is still quite a popular technique. So let's see how this airbrush copes with pre-shading. I'm using AK Real Color Black, thinned about 60/40 paint to Mr. Leveling Thinners. Let's see how we get on. To be able to get in nice and close to the model, I'm going to remove the nozzle cap. Leaving this on directs a lot more pressure into the area you're spraying, meaning your paint's much more likely to spider, and we don't want that, so I'm setting that aside for the moment. Let's see how fine a line this airbrush can do. Okay, so that's not great. It's a bit speckly. I'm going to add some more thinner to the paint and see how we get on. So that's a little bit better. I think the low pressure output on the compressor unit doesn't like thicker paint, so make sure your paint is thinned nicely and you'll get better results. Okay, next I'm going to try and cover the pre-shading with a layer of Vallejo Model Air Interior Green. Now this is quite a popular range of paints, so it might be something that one of you might be using if you were using this airbrush. I've given it a good shake. Let's get a few drops in the cup and see how we get on. Now I don't think that went too badly. As you can see, I had to build up several coats to build up the opacity, but that's the nature of the paint. And I think base coats is really where the meat and bones of this airbrush is going to be. Nothing fancy, just laying down decent layers of paint. As you can see, there's some slight overspray and diffusion, but if I thinned the paint a bit more, that might ease up a little bit. Next up, I'm going to be using some MRP. Now this is a lacquer paint, and it's already ready thinned, so all you need to do is drop that in your airbrush and get going. Let's see how this lays down. So let's see how we get on painting camouflage and fine line work. To be honest, there's a little bit of overspray, but that's not bad for a soft edge camo. We might be able to do a better job if we take the nozzle cap off again. Once again, not too bad, but the inconsistent pressure from the compressor really lets the paint flow down. You could see lots of pulsing as I was spraying, and if you hooked up the airbrush to a proper compressor, you'd probably get much better results. But I'm quite surprised, that's actually not too bad. Okay, so now I'm spraying this airbrush through my Awata Sprint Jet. Now this is an oil-less piston compressor. It doesn't have a tank, but it still performs really well for me. Now the more consistent pressure is allowing me to spray lines more consistently. So let's summarise. Is this airbrush a good buy? Well, yes and no. While it may be a very affordable kit to get you started with airbrushing, there are a few things to mention that might not be so good. But we'll start with the good points. Number 1, the cost. For the price of a model kit, you can buy an airbrush with a mini compressor. Next up would be the base coat ability. You will be able to spray solid colours with little effort with the right thinning ratio. Third up is portability. You can literally take this anywhere. So if you wanted to spray your models at your nan's house, you can. Why not? Go ahead. So let's take a look at the downsides of this ultra cheap portable airbrush and compressor. So first up are spare parts. Needles and nozzles wear out and get damaged over time, so getting spares for this might be challenging to say the least. Build quality. While it's not awful, you will get better results with a more professional product, made with better quality materials with durable seals and tighter tolerances between the parts. And lastly, it's not great for detail work. While I was surprised with the quality I could get, it just doesn't quite cut it when compared to more expensive airbrushes. So guys, what do you think about this airbrush? Let me know in the comments. Do you think it's any good? Would you buy it? Would you not buy it? Why not? Let me know. As ever, I want to give a huge thanks to my patrons for supporting my work. You guys are awesome, thank you very much. If you're interested in becoming a patron, just click the link in the description or hitting the card in the corner. And lastly, I want to thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, ding the bell, everything like that. I'll see you in the next one.